Hi, my name is Bruce Trujillo, and we're coming to you from the YETI store in Denver, Colorado. We're excited for you to join us tonight as we celebrate live music and the importance of independent music venues in our communities. We're also here to put the spotlight on the book Bring Music Home, featuring more than 200 music venues in 30 cities across the United States. YETI is thrilled to partner with Bring Music Home on this 500-page monument to the music industry. A portion of the proceeds of every book will benefit NIVA, the National Independent Venue Association, and their efforts to save live music in our communities. For more information on the book, Bring Music Home, or to buy your copy now, go to www.bringmusichome.com. Tonight's program will begin with a short video vignette from the Bring Music Home project, followed by a conversation with local music venue owner David Weingarten of Z2 Entertainment, which owns the Boulder and Fox Theaters, among others, and we'll end with a bang with a performance from the amazing Denver band Kiltro.
Within 6 hours, we went from having a full calendar to having an entire month free ahead of us.
It's been so slow for months now. We spent weeks and months not knowing if we were going to get a dime. And
every show has been canceled or postponed.
Our last show was March 11th.
I kind of felt like this could be it. Like after the show, all the shows were going away for the foreseeable future.
You can plan for almost anything, and I don't think any person was able to plan for this.
First to close and we'll be the last to open. And that's a sad reality.
Music's not just like a weekend entertainment thing, it's our lives.
Technically, almost every music venue in America, maybe the world, is bankrupt.
You know, the whole ecosystem surrounding this venue and all the other venues, everyone involved is really without a lot of hope right now.
Putting people into this venue and expose them to new music and new art, that's what I'm here to do, you know, and man, not doing that is rough, you know.
People that work in this industry should not be one check away from, or one situation away from just being homeless. But, you know, there are communities in this country that have been there for a long time.
After doing this for as long as I've been doing it, I cannot imagine I can't walk away from it.
The Oriental Theater opened New Year's Day of 1927. I think about my staff and I think about all these bands and how we were once together, and I'm excited to bring everyone back together.
Just talking to other promoters, talking to other venue staff, and talking to other people in other states around the country, and just understanding that we're all in this together and that our collective voice is a pretty strong thing.
It's not just us looking out for ourselves, it's really us looking out for like the cultural longevity of this amazing music city.
Forget the silly little arguments we had, because now the bigger picture is at stake.
This is my life.
Will we ever return back to normal? I don't know. It might be a new normal.
We're gonna get through it.
This matters because this little shack, like, saves lives.
Come see a show when we open back up.
Welcome back. Certainly some familiar feelings that we've had here in the Denver music community, as we just saw. I'm Bruce Trujillo, joined by some of my pals in the Colorado music community. I've got David Weingarten of Z2 Entertainment from Boulder and up in Fort Collins now, expanding into that market, and the band Kiltro out of Denver, William Parkhill, Chris Bowers-Castillo, and Michael DiVincenzi. So we're going to be talking about this past year in the Colorado music community, closing down, not being able to play shows, not being able to host shows. I want to hear from each of you. What was the last show that you were at or that you performed? David, what was the last one that you were at or held at either one of your venues, any of your venues?
So we had, at the Boulder Theater, we had 2 nights of the Growlers, and we had Somersault over at the Fox Theater. And it was really interesting. You could sort of feel it happening, like we knew something that it was imminent, that it was going to be shut down, but we didn't know that it was going to be like the next day, really. But that's all anybody could talk with. We were hanging out with the band, and that was the only thing that people were talking about, And the Growlers actually signed my poster. It said, "The last concert on Earth."
Ew. Do you remember the date of that show? Was it
March 12th.
March 12th, yeah. I remember that. Kiltro, what was the last show that you guys played live in a venue?
Last one we did was Washington's. I guess it must have been February
26th.
Something like that, yeah.
It was the Colorado Sound birthday party.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Had you guys planned on going out on tour and doing more shows during the summer and that got put on hold?
Yeah. So our original plan was we'd gotten booked on a tour with a band called The Dip. And we were going to open for them, and it was kind of southeast, had a lot of shows, and we're really excited for it. And of course, there were kind of whispers in the beginning that something was happening, and then our buddy Brent was saying, they're about to close everything down, and we were kind of like, well, I don't know.
Being dramatic, man.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then sure enough, a few days later, I guess it was March 13th or 14th or something, that everything just got totally canceled, shut down.
And we had been on a tour in the West Coast, and we had started in San Diego, ended up in Washington, or Seattle, Washington. And we were in packed rooms. We were lucky enough to be on a supporting bill, sold-out shows. We had no idea, especially in the early epicenter. I mean, we were right in the heat of it, and we're completely oblivious,
Right. I remember around that time as well, I'd gone to San Francisco for a show, and it was right after the city declared a state of emergency, and we're like, we'll be fine. Yeah. Were you guys stuck out on the West Coast for a little bit, or did you come directly home?
No, we were,
we came home. This is
this is February, early February.
February 3rd, 4th.
Right.
No, 14th, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Somewhere around there,
Sometime in February. Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, well, let's get to know everybody that's here really quick. David, Z2 has a couple of venues. It's not just the Boulder and the Fox in Boulder. You're also now up in Fort Collins with the Aggie. So tell me a little bit more about each of these venues, because they each have a totally different vibe.
Yeah, so we started in 2010 as a merger between the Fox and the Boulder Theater. And in March of 2019, we acquired the Aggie in Fort Collins. We also booked the Chautauqua Auditorium in Boulder, their summer concert series, Strings Music Pavilion and Steamboat, and the Riverwalk in Breckenridge. We also work with Agave in Avon Vale and the Public House in Crested Butte. So we've got strategically placed venues all throughout to make it a really one-stop shop for agents and bands to come to us.
So how was that feeling last year when you had to shut down? Of course, Boulder and Fox, within that community, that's one thing. But with all of these different places, especially at the beginning of spring going into summer with the Chautauqua and up in Avon, all of these, how was that feeling in the office?
It was rough. I mean, we were, at the beginning stages of it, we were thinking about maybe it was going to be a couple weeks or a couple months or something like that. I was just looking at some old emails recently and just how off we were all about, the sort of long range issue about of the whole entire thing. And so we were, we were completely shut down and had to pull hundreds of shows, literally hundreds of shows, postpone and we've continued to postpone and reschedule. I've rescheduled some shows 4 or 5 times already. Yeah. Everybody's pretty spent and done and over with it and ready to nobody wants to move any more shows. It's a pretty brutal process, and we've been hanging on to customers' money sometimes for, it's probably going to be 2 years on a few shows, but people are very understanding, and this community thrives on, all the communities around here thrive on live music.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're very understanding, and we can't wait to have people back in 100% capacity, where we're all partying and hanging out with each other and sharing good vibes and watching great live music.
Have you seen a lot of community support throughout the entire thing? I mean, I know for me, like these theaters are near and dear to my heart,
Yes.
but yeah.
We have. And it got to the point, it's when we're humming along, it's 160 people. We had 160 employees between the Boulder and the Fox Theater. That did not including the Aggie, but just up until a few months ago, we were down to 3 people. And that's a lot of people in the community that are out of work. And there's been some studies done around when we hold shows, for every $1 that's spent on concert tickets, or within to purchase these concerts, $12 is spent within the community. Uber drivers, restaurants, all that stuff. And so it all feeds that ecosystem, not only within the music industry with like the truck drivers and the bus drivers and the caterers and all that, and the stagehands, but like we all sort of like feed off of each other. And in Boulder, there was actually a study done where it's $26 for every dollar.
Yeah, that's super easy to do. I mean, especially like with the Pearl Street Mall, like that's a whole entire ritual in and of itself. That's
a massive amount of lost tax revenue and a massive amount of people not working. And we're the entertainment industry here in Colorado. We are the number 3 driver of the revenue within the state of Colorado.
Wow.
So and we've all been shut down for over almost a year and a half now.
Yeah. We'll get back to that here in just a sec, but let's get to know Kiltro a little bit better. So, Chris, I'm going to start with you. Tell me a little bit about this project. You guys have been around for a couple of years, but tell me a little bit more.
So it started out just me. I was kind of doing just like folk stuff. I'd been living in Chile because my mom is from Santiago, and I used to go back and forth a lot when I was little. And so I had this idea when I was living in Chile that I wanted to do. Originally, it was going to be like this book of short stories and stuff, and it kind of slowly evolved into music because I just got back into writing songs and stuff. And then came to the States, and then I was in London for a little while, mostly kind of on the open mic scene, until decided to come back to Denver. And then, I met up with Will again. We'd met in college. Started doing this kind of looping act where Will would play bass, and just continued on from there till we met Michael, because Will and Michael had met a few years prior. Had him come in, and it was pretty quickly evident that he was the right fit. So now we've been kind of kicking around Denver for a couple years. Had our first album about a year ago,
Yeah, I was just going to say the debut album, Creatures of Habit, is actually almost 2 years old, and I can't even believe
it doesn't feel real.
It doesn't feel
crazy.
real.
I guess I've just blocked out this previous year from
2020 is not real. But tell me about that debut album and kind of putting it out there into the world. We met you guys back in, 2018 when it was just the duo, and then the momentum building up to this debut album.
Like UMS or something.
Well, actually, one of our first shows was a recorded TV set. I mean, with our open porch session.
The porch session at UMS? Yeah.
And that was one of these things where I was kind of like sitting there shaking with the cameras, like, oh no, not only is it the first one, it's going to be recorded.
Screen.
And look at it, here we are now.
How things have changed. But tell me about that album and kind of putting that together, recording it, and putting it out into the world after being on the open mic circuit and performing live, and finally getting these songs onto tape.
Because I had done one single prior to that, and I didn't have a ton of experience in the studio. I would mostly do, kind of just record things at home on Logic, which is like a recording software. And then the looping thing was something that also definitely supplemented the process a lot. Just kind of stacking songs or sounds together, and I'd play with a lot of effects pedals and sort of, and for a time it was actually just intended to be like an ambient act where I would just make ambient music. But then I found that songs were sort of emerging from that, and it was just a really great catalyst for ideas. And so that's what Kiltro kind of came out of, was like this tapestry of noise, and so it was kind of in the beginning a little difficult to capture that, because with a looper you get like this one audio line with all these sounds stacked on top of each other, and in the studio of course you have to record everything sort of separately and individually, and so getting that to sound right was the process. And we hadn't made a full album before, and so it was just a matter of figuring out kind of what the narrative was from start to finish. And it was a long process, but we were lucky that we worked with a guy, his name's Kyle Smith, and he gave us the option to sort of go in and to his house and just continuously record new sounds. He'd bounce us tracks, and then Will and I would go and just add tons and tons of stuff. And so it was a process of just eliminating all of our bad ideas, and like leaving the essential stuff. That was good. And that came out. We had our album release at Larimer Lounge, which was a really special experience. And it was a sold-out show, which we were lucky for, and had an amazing time. It was probably one of my favorite shows we've done. Just like a lot of love that night, and some really wonderful memories. So
yeah, I remember that show, and that kind of leads into my next question, is community support as well for the band. For people who don't know, the Denver music community, the Colorado music community, is super supportive, super tight-knit. So tell me about your experience in the Denver music community and getting started and releasing this album here.
Well, and I think one thing that sort of surprised us, as we first started playing, we noticed a wonderful reaction of people loving to dance. And I had played in several other groups before, and they were more folk or rock oriented, and it's just sort of the head shaking sort of music, And I think we never really intended to make music to move to, but we'd move to this music, and then people would as well. And so things just kind of blossomed from there, and we just found, shows more and more full of people wanting to dance, until we just, people were just pouring their love out for us, and we'd find other musicians to play with, and, they're always really happy to share stages, and us share stages with them. It's hard to describe exactly all the support.
We were just practicing a song today and remembering, we were like, wait, what's missing? And we were like, it's literally the audience. There's one song, Lovers of Death, that we might play today. And just feeding off the energy of people dancing is something we really miss. It brings the whole...
Oh, a ton, yeah.
It makes it real, you know? Yeah.
I'll dance for you guys.
Yeah, please. We'll be dancing during this for sure.
Absolutely.
There's plenty of room in here for you, David.
There's a boat over there, too.
All right, so let's talk about venues. Let's talk about the Fox Theater. We know about the Boulder Theater a little bit, but tell me a little bit about the history of the Fox Theater. What makes it so unique and so Boulder? I feel like it's a staple in Boulder.
Well, I think that what goes into the Fox, it's been around since 1992, and we're actually going to be celebrating our 30th anniversary next year, which is going to be great. And what really makes it is that, it's really built on, the music, the sound, and everything that's in there. It's one of those places where you just want to be with. It's all about the music. It's not about just when you're completely immersed, I guess is what I want to say. You're completely immersed in the music. There's not too much room within the lobby to kind of super hang, but so you're just inside. And it's one of the best rooms to see a show, and it has been for a long time. We've got posters in the back that it's Radiohead for $7 and Dave Matthews, and everybody got their start there at the venue, and they've come up, and still to this day they continue to want to come back. When Primus and came through Red Rocks, we did a show at the Fox Theater right next door because they loved the place, and Lennon Claypool did the show the next day afterwards. So we had this it was a 3-day Primus Les Claypool fest, Yeah. So it was really cool. But they're just great rooms, and we take care of, not only do we take care of the patrons really well, and just making sure everybody's having a good time, we take care of the artists. And, we're not a deep-pocketed promoter like a big corporate promoter or anything like that. And so how we make sure that we bring those artists those artists want to come back to our place, is to make sure that we're showing exemplary customer service,
right,
to our artists, and not only to our patrons but to our artists, and they really appreciate that, and they always want to come back. And the stuff that we have is top notch, and we take pride in all of it.
People will remember Z2, and you just also acquired the Aggie Theater up in Fort
Right.
Collins, as we mentioned. Tell me a little bit about Z2 taking over that venue.
Well, we had the opportunity. There was a promoter that was in there prior that was in there, and they sort of had a feeling like they had come to the end of that reign, and so they came to us, and we wanted to purchase it. So what we're trying to do is, when we expand, we realize how much music and how many music fans are out there in Colorado, and how important music is to people in Colorado. And so we wanted to have that those strategic venues throughout the state. And so we have the Boulder we have 3 venues in Boulder, 1 Fort Collins. We've got a couple mountain venues as well. And then through the pandemic, we founded the Colorado Independent Venue Alliance, and that's been a really awesome thing to be able to be in touch with over 100 independent venues within the state of Colorado. So if we can't book it ourselves, we certainly reach out to all of our friends who are the independent promoters throughout the state of Colorado to make sure that we're continuing to float all boats, because that's super important for the independent scene.
It's like keeping the ecosystem afloat across
right.
the state.
That's right.
Well, before we get to this amazing performance from Kiltro, I'm super excited. I want to talk to you guys really quick about independent venues and how that's been, how they've treated you, and how that's important to you guys being able to tour, being here in Denver. Tell me about working with independent venues and why it's important.
Well, we haven't played at the Fox, but that is one of my favorite venues. I love that place.
You're hired.
What's that?
You're hired.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, that's all I'm doing. Local spots, Larimer is amazing. The staff there is awesome. Yeah, I miss going to Larimer. I miss going to High Dive and all the spots. It's weird. We really take it for granted.
I can reflect too, like all the people you meet, the characters, all the stories and the crazy events you get into. It's hard to even dream that up until you're actually in it. And being a musician and in this industry is a huge fortune, because life kind of expands for that reason. I found myself in countless situations with really kind, supportive people that I would never have imagined I could come across. But music, allows that opportunity. And not that this year has been a void necessarily, but it has shown me how much I truly miss that.
Right.
Really.
And independent venues being able to support independent artists. Chris, can you speak to being able to bring your music out more into the community because you've had spots like these?
Yeah. Well, that's what, and I'm sure there's a lot of places where this is true, but the nice thing about, Denver is that it is easier to get on stage and to find an opportunity to play in front of an audience and to find an opening act when you're, kind of starting out. And the people that you meet and the networks that you end up creating are really, as Will was saying, valuable and memorable. And we made so many friends, doing, playing music. And I think it's so important to support local venues because it's a space for community. And I think it's been quite difficult, I think, for a whole lot of people this past year to not have that access, because for some people it's a release, and for some it's a mental health issue too, to be able to go out and connect with others and spend time, not just with friends but with strangers,
Right.
And they do a really good job here, a whole lot of places. So yeah,
it is an
means a lot.
ecosystem. It is community.
Mhm.
We're going to hear from Kiltro here in just a second. A little bit of new music, maybe.
We got a couple songs we're thinking of showcasing today.
The other stuff that we're still in the studio with, so shortly.
All right, great. Let's get to it. We're going to hear from Kiltro with a performance here on Bring Music Home. Ladies and gentlemen, Kiltro.
place where your rest don't come. Mind's grown numb. Your mind is collected, tell her exactly where you're going. Tired as hell, all took up. The shakes as you stumble in. Feel like you could leave on. Feel like you could leave on. Show me the ways that you talk, and all of the places you walk. If I lead, would you follow? Let me at the corners of the light, don't touch. Colors, figures, sway. Love, they might lift you away from the streets to its under. If I lead, would you follow? 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 I woke from a restless state. Hands, my feet. A pulse and electric shivers, quivers, building, boiling heat. Spies and birds and careless sun. I think you saw lead you in. Feel like you could leave on. 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 Show me the ways that you talk, and all of the places you walk. If I lead, would you follow? Let me at the corners of the light, don't touch. Colors, figures, sway. Love, they might lift you away from the streets to its under. There's everything that's scattered by the light of day. Mind inside these leaves of mine, they call you and you lie. Mind inside these leaves of mine, they pull you through. You lie, they do. just wouldn't notice. Creatures of darkness haunt the places you walk and flow like breath on a lotus. I've seen it myself, my friend, and if you believe, I saw you one night at a walking. Julia, Julia, where were you going? A light it comes home. A light it comes home. A light it comes home. Where you live. Somewhere down the bank where the dogs go. Por la calle que te lleva a Curicó. Down the beach where no others can find. Ani por agua piso coche ni avión. Well, I swore that in my heart of hearts, I seen you there, I seen you there, I seen you at the spur where your ships don't go. Down where the moonlight drapes the tips of the reeds, the things you just wouldn't notice. Creatures of darkness haunting out by the reeds, you swear that death was upon us. It was from a half dream, those mutters in half speech, and pale as she spoken. Julia, Julia, I guess you need a light where you're going. To somewhere down the bank where the dogs go. Por la calle que te lleva a Curicó. And down the beach where no others can find. Ani por agua piso coche ni avión. Well, I swore that in my heart of hearts, I seen you there, I seen you there, I seen you at the spot where your ships don't go. ¿Pa dónde va la luz, mi perlita? ¿Pa dónde va la luz, mi perlita? ¿Pa dónde va la luz, mi perlita? ¿A dónde va la luz, mi perlita?
Y la orquesta.
Chapter 6. Therefore, leaving the principles of the doctrines of Christ, let us go on and
I swear to God, it tears me all up. Where you live, not a sound, my love, I just don't know where you are. And I felt that synergy, I felt lift on this curious love. Little darling, what say that you mean it? Use all of your thoughts split apart at the seams, but don't know why you run. I felt it for real on the doors of the day. You get it worse where you are. I saw I never leave my love, I just don't wanna be without. And all that you disregard, I swear to God, it tears me all up. Where you live, not a sound, my love, I just don't know where you are. And I felt that synergy, I felt this dauntless, curious love. Little darling, what say that you mean it? 'Cause all of your thoughts split apart at the seams. Well, don't know why you run. I felt it for real on the doors of the day. You get it worse where you are. Did you like it? Well, I wear your dreams there. I dreamed of a heart with a loveless and steam man that grows where it please. Make it man in the needles and in the end it's a calm. Gasoline of the curious dreams that were haunted to sky and it gonna run easy. They wait till you break. I got patience for years, and when your head is undone, she runs from the slow. places you ain't ever been. Minarets of pirouette and piece of glass and canopies. Where you wanna be, wanna be, wanna be, oh yeah. They say I talk a lot, well I could change you with a thought. You know me in a form of like I'm messianic Argonaut. But those are better days, better days, better days, oh yeah. No, I sleep where the dogs go, the places the drunks roam. Right down by the lifeboats, I said it before, my friend, I swear I'm not like those. I got my days, man, this one's like the last one. You pass me by on the daily, well how do you see me? A drunk or a deadbeat, you don't know the half of it. My life is amazing, I got my days though, I got my days though. Como te va? Como te va? Como te va, Ivo? Como te va? Como te va? Como te va? Como te va? It says he needs you so much, needs you so much. Wanders down the block and screams and tongues at the cross. It tears you all up, it tears you apart. I show you everything, fortune streams and reveries. I tally bets and don't forget the shooters by the dollar sea. Where you wanna be, wanna be, wanna be, oh yeah. And though I sleep where the dogs go, the places the drunks roam, right down by the lifeboats. I said it before, my friend, I swear I'm not like those. I got my days, man, this one's not the last one. You pass me by on the daily, well how do you see me? I drink out a deadbeat, you don't know the half of it. My life is amazing, it's so wrong, it's so wrong. Como te va? Como te va? Como te va, Ivo? Como te va? 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 Como te va, Ivo? Como te va? Como te va? Como te va? Como te va? far as I know, I'm unable to foot the accord. 'Cause I wake up after some motors of intentions they roll. Is it that where we turn so unstable? Must we watch where we roll?
Thank you. That's us. We're Kiltro. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks to YETI. You guys are amazing. Seriously appreciate our first show in so long. It feels so good. So thank you.
Kiltro for Bring Music Home. We have the book. We have a book for you guys, actually, and it's signed from the Bring Music Home team.
Oh, that's great. Whoops. Thank you, guys. Here's the book. Bring Music Home. Gonna search through it really quickly, see if I can find Denver.
Yeah, find the Denver pages.
All right, we got Dallas. Oh, Denver. That was easy. That was really quick. That was first try. Yeah, Seventh Circle. Oriental Theater, Local 46. That's awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
guys.
Yeah.